again today, and this video is going to be a bit different than what you're usually seeing on the channel. It is usually running videos and layout updates. This video is going to be a review of the most popular engine that I've posted, and that is the Lionel Century Club 2 Empire State Express Hudson. Now this is going to be a bit different than most reviews that are on YouTube. They're usually just showing the detail and maybe some of the history about the engine. What I'm going to be talking about is, yes, some of the detail, the features, and running it. But I'm also going to be talking about why I got the engine and the history on the actual engine itself, not the one in real life, this Lionel engine. So let's get started. So as I said before, this is the Lionel Empire State Express Hudson that is part of the Century Club 2 series. The Century Club series was a club that you could join to buy 6 or so engines, and joining the club gave you the privilege to buy these super nice engines. This is part of the Century Club 2, which was the second run of engines. The first one was post-war oriented engines, which were just remakes of post-war engines that were famous, and then this was just a set of engines that were just more scale oriented. As you can see, this is a scale engine, and it's a very nice engine. I got this engine because it has a very cool whistle, and I love streamlined Hudsons that are part of the New York Central Railroad. Now that I've told you why I got this engine and some of the history on it, let's go in for some of the detail. Before we start talking about all the detail, I would like to mention that this engine is from 2005, so it might not have as much detail as some of the newer legacy engines do, but it does have a decent amount of detail for the time and the fact that it is a streamlined engine. So now that I've told you that, let's look at some of the detail. First, we see the start of the handrails that go all the way down the engine. We see the Empire State Express logo right here. It has a nice placard that says New York Central and the Empire State Express right above it. And then there is a plate that can come off to reveal a scale coupler, and all you do to take that off is flip the engine over and take off 2 screws. Then there's also a dummy O-scale coupler that is packaged with the engine that you can attach so you can double head this engine. Looking down a bit farther, we see one of the 2 cylinders on this engine, and the front truck, which is a 4-wheel truck, because this is a 4-6-4 type steam locomotive. Now that we've looked at the front, let's look down the side of the engine. On the top of the locomotive, we see a sand dome here, and we see some pop-off valves and a hand-painted valve here. We'll see another hand-painted valve and the whistle. The new Empire State Express has the whistle steam smoke effect, but this one does not. But that does not take away from this engine, at least to me. So now that we've seen this part, let's move down to the cab. Here's the cab of the locomotive. This does have the opening vents, and all 3 of these do open. 1, 2, and 3. I like to keep these 2 closed and this one open. That's just my preference. So now that we've looked at the top of the locomotive, let's just look at the back sides of the locomotive. As we get to the back of the cab, we see the extension of the shrouding with the louvers on it. And one note about this is that this bottom plate below this one, see that there's this crack here, and you can remove this to make the engine look like it was in its later service when they removed it, so they could get to stuff like the dynamo down here. And to remove that, you have to flip the locomotive over and remove 2 screws, and then the plate comes right off, and it looks pretty cool, but I like to keep the shrouding on. We also see the great crisp lettering 5429, and we also have plastic inserts for the windows, and these windows do open and close. And on the inside of the locomotive, we have 2 hand-painted crew fingers and a well-detailed backhead, and there's also a cab light. It does not turn off when the locomotive is running like the newer engines, and there's also a flickering firebox. So now that we've looked at the engine, now let's take a look at the tender. So here's the tender. It is a great looking tender. It has all these louvers that are extending from the locomotive. It has crisp New York Central lettering on it, and the paint all over is very good. There is also a builder's plate here, and you can read that under a magnifying glass. Up on top of the tender, we see the real coal load that this engine has. So this is real coal, not fake coal. This is real coal that has been chopped up super small and then glued down. And it adds a lot of realism to this locomotive. Here at the back here we have the water hatch, and it does open, and on the inside there is the volume pod and the signal sound rail sounds switch, so you can switch between all sounds or just bell and whistle. And then now we can close that. And then there's also the beginning of a ladder down here. There's some rivets, and there's also some molded in hatches on top. Now let's move down to the bottom. Here on the back of the tender we have a lot of signage and numbers. We have these signs that say danger, keep out. And then we also have this sign that says Century Club 2, which almost all Century Club engines say Century on them, whether it's Century Club 1 or 2. We have the amount of gallons and tons inside of here, and then we have the road number 5429, and then we have the ladder coming down, and we have the backup light. And then finally we have the electric coupler that can be thrown from the TMCC or the Legacy remote, which is what I am using. Actually, before I show you any features on this locomotive, I will show you the bottom of it and the bottom of the tender. Down here is that scale dummy coupler that can be shown if you remove this plate, and you see these small little screws right there and there. If you remove those, you can remove the plate and then swing the coupler out. And if you unscrew these screws back here, that one and that one, then you can remove this coupler. We also see the front truck, which is a four-wheel truck. And now let's move down the bottom of the engine. Moving down the locomotive, on the bottom we have two traction tires, one here and one here. And then we do have two pickup rollers, one here and one here. And now that we've seen this part, we can move down to the back under the cab. Here under the cab we have the trailing truck and the wireless tether that goes to the tender. And under it is the run program switch, the Odyssey speed control on-off switch. And on the other side is the smoke on-off and the work lights on and off. So now that we've looked at the bottom of the locomotive, we can now look at the bottom of the tender. Here on the bottom of the tender we have one pickup roller, one per truck. There's these nice six-wheeled trucks here, and there's some nice added on details here. And there's also the electric coupler down here. And there's also the hole for the Fat Boy speaker that is in this tender, which is very loud, just to tell you. And now that we have looked at the undersides of the tender and locomotive, now we can look at the features and run this locomotive. So I've dimmed the lights so you can see the ground lights and the headlight. They both look very good. And now let me turn the lights back on. And let me start up the engine. I've programmed it as engine 29. And we'll start it up. Let's hear the whistle first. Now let's hear the bell. Let's hear the injectors. slowdown. Here's the crew talk.
5429 here. I'm ready to go. Over. 5429, you are good to go. Over. Copy that, dispatch. Cleared outbound. Over. 5429 here. Can I roll now? Over. 5429, there is track work in progress. Please stand by. Over. Copy. 5429 standing by. Out.
Here's the tower comm.
New York Central 5429, the west end is flagged. Please stand by. Over. Copy that. We're waiting. Out. 5429, you are good to go. Over. Copy. Cleared outbound. Over.
And if you don't like the crew talk sound, you don't have to use them. I personally like them, so I do use them. So now that I've shown you the features, let's run this engine around the layout. What I will be pulling behind this is a set of Santa Fe streamlined passenger cars. I know they don't go with the road name, which is New York Central, but they are what was on the layout at the time. So I just put them behind this engine, and let's roll her out.
5429, you are good to go. Over. Copy. Cleared outbound. Over. This is 5429. We're rolling. Over. Acknowledged. Out. 5429 here. Just one unit clear ahead. Over. New York Central 5429, you are all clear ahead. Over. I copy that, dispatch. Out. Signing off. Out.
So that's been my review of the Lionel Century Club 2 Empire State Express Hudson. I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more reviews like this one, more running videos, and layout updates. I'm Sydney Flumbum, and I'll see you next time.